fourth year group, history and social study group, and I just want you to give them a warm round of applause. Time is of the essence. So at this point in time, I will just invite Miss Moore to come at this time to do.
I'll try my best. As he mentioned before, the symposium is put on by our fourth year students here, and as you see, the theme is exploring, educating, and empowering Jamaican citizens through civics education. So, we all know that civics was around before, and the whole teaching of civics ended, but now they're reintroducing it. And this is hence why we have this put on today, and why we have invited some persons here to speak about it, further to better inform us, to help us better prepare ourselves for to teach civics in schools come September. So I would like to introduce you to our symposium.
Thank you. On the
They
spot.
always say, as a citizenship, listen, they say a ship is not carrying you anywhere, what you should do with the ship. Jump ship. So today, at least, Bethlehem is going to be putting full gear on this ship of citizenship and see if it can carry us somewhere along the line. And at this point in time, not taking up time, we just invite our history group, our fourth year history group, to do an item.
Look at you on your phone. Eh? Every minute of the day you're on the phone.
But you mind people business stuff, yeah.
But it is true. No, it is true. In my days when we were going to school and we did civics education, we never have any phone, we never have any computer. So we read.
Josh.
You know what it is that you people don't appreciate the culture because you don't know about it. You don't know about it, you don't appreciate the heroes on the national symbols, but you don't know the rights. Which you need for post-election gone.
What me have vote for?
So you see, you don't know the democratic rights. You are able to vote out a leader. You see, in 50 years, when we have civics, you know all of that.
Hello, you vote out one and vote in the other, the same thing.
When you realize that they're not doing their job, you vote them out and see if there's another, if there's a better person.
Grandma, let me tell you something. You see right now, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Skype, everything.
Look at this. Look at your rights as a citizen, not your responsibilities.
I'm responsible. As long as I eat and I live, I'm right, I'm responsible.
Because I don't do civics, so I'm glad them are reintroduced civics.
I feel work, listen.
Look at it.
I feel work.
Look at it. Tell me what that is you need. Look at it. The green is for what you need.
You know grass, you know the grass, you must speak that. What else? In our flag, you must grass.
Look at what the goal is for. That makes me correct. People, what about the black? The black is for dark. You need
Black people like you, black color, black.
the black is for dark. That's the best way you can put
You
it.
see?
The future dark. Let me see your homework, honey.
She's nothing.
You see? Because they're reintroducing civics in the school. Look at Maya's work. Straight A.
Candy Crush time. What do you
You see, Maya learn about learning class about civics and her role as a citizen, her responsibility, national symbols, and it all know. But
this and
Mama,
and I have the right to let you go to school and learn.
Mama, I got this says, who is this man here? Man, black man. We don't need to know anything. Black man.
But you look like your father, I know. You look like him.
You see?
Maya, who is that man, Maya? Who is that man?
Marcus Garvey.
But who is he?
He's a national hero, Mama.
Wonderful, and he has helped us black boys.
Grandma, let me tell you something. One thing we know, me as Jamaican,
You know what? I need them to start introducing civics over Louisville and over
you are right. Yes, you push us setting up a team. Let's talk about things like this. You are right.
Alright, so guys, you can see the difference and the impact that civics education or citizenship education makes in students' life and lives of citizens overall.
Give them a round. Just as what we have said before, a lot of teachers are going out into the working world, but are not really cognizant of what is really supposed to be going on. As social study teachers, your heart must be beating. That's what is a commitment of our own Joan Davis Williams from Michael's Teachers College has said to us. And as social study teachers, you must make a difference. At this point in time, as what Miss Williams and team have asked and requests that they go first in the presentation. At this time, we just give them a warm welcome of a birthday. Hold on, Miss Williams. Don't move. Don't let the crime break. We just allow Miss Shaneke Porter to do the introduction at this point. Yes.
So ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased this afternoon to introduce our main speakers for the day, Mr. Jones from Hampton, Miss Chisholm, and Mrs. Daly Williams. Mrs. Daly Williams also taught me at Bethlehem High School, and they were all both helpful on my teaching practice at Hampton Girls School. So I'm pleased that everybody gives them a warm, big welcome to their
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Let me first say that it is a privilege to be in this classroom again. I have so many memories in this classroom with Mrs. Miles and quite a number of you who are sitting here. And it is absolutely wonderful that I can come back in this capacity to share with you. Most of you will be familiar with me, but this is Miss Chisholm, who is also a social studies teacher, and Mr. Jones, social studies and civics, and Mr. Jones, who is civics and Caribbean studies and social studies teacher as well. So the civics curriculum is new in the sense that it is not what it used to be, but we know that years ago it was something that was taught in schools, and over the years it was pushed aside, and then based on certain things that we see happening in the society, and erosion of values, standards and norms in the society, people have come together and decided that it is something that ought to be reintroduced in an effort to see if there can be a change in terms of nationalism as it relates to how we see ourselves as Jamaicans, and also in an effort to get people to understand their roles and their responsibilities. The civics curriculum is, we have a chart here with the design where we will understand that it is taught from grades 1 to 9, and so there are 3 major attainment targets. The first one is really getting persons to be aware of who we are, aware of our environment. The second attainment target has to do with developing consciousness, and the third has to do with responsibility. Why it is that we are here, what is our role in this society. And if we look at what is happening in the society, in truth and in fact, you will understand that if we do not see a positive change, we're going to find that in the near future, we're going to find ourselves in trouble in relation to the things that we see happening around us. I'm going to ask Mr. Jones now to look at to first look at what civics is and why it is that they have decided to why is it so important for them to reintroduce civics as part of the primary and secondary schools curriculum.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
As was brought out in the little skit role play that the group just did, it is important to note that as Jamaicans, we lack a knowledge of our basic national information. We'll find that there are a number of students, and may I also say teachers, in modern Jamaica who do not tend to know the great value of the information that we possess as a people and how that information contributes to the culture that we have as a people. Now, as social studies teachers going out very soon, the onus is on you. The burden of the responsibility is on you to have civics come alive, not merely by the sheer information that is being passed on, but what is the value of that information. So it is one thing to be learning about our national symbols. It is another thing to appreciate the value of that symbol in transforming us in the kind of people that we ought to be. And this just came to mind. When we look at it, there are a number of Jamaicans who have migrated. And these Jamaicans go elsewhere in first world countries. And they have come to learn, and may I also say appreciate, the foreign culture more so than they do right here in Jamaica. And it is an affront to us as a people. When we look on simple national and civic pride, for example, disposing of our garbage properly, a Jamaican here will be irresponsible enough to let loose of some garbage through the window of a minibus, claiming that he or she sees no receptacle for disposing the garbage. And when these same Jamaicans go abroad, we value how important it is to care for and to keep the environment clean. These are some of the things that we want to reintroduce in our Jamaican school system. We tend to know at times more about foreign nationals and what certain people mean to the American society than what our own local people mean to us as a people. It is a shame, but if we think about it, there are many Americans who can tell us more about Marcus Garvey than many Jamaicans do know about the same Marcus Garvey. So the question is, why civics? Why civics? And I'm just reinforcing some of what Mrs. Dale Williams just said. We want to reintroduce the national pride. We need to have persons embracing our national symbols. We need to know more about our rights and our responsibilities. And we need to ensure that those youngsters who are so impressionable, we need to ensure that these youngsters are aware, they become conscious, because I took note of the chart when I came in. Awareness is one, becoming conscious is one, but responsibility is most important. So it is a transition that is taking place. You're becoming aware, right? You're becoming conscious. When you become conscious, it means that the knowledge that you have is going to help to guide the behavior that you display, right? And then you become responsible, not only wanting to embrace that information in and of yourself, but you want to pass that information onward. And that is what we're going to be doing as social studies teachers. So of course we have to embrace more positive values and attitudes. We need to redefine the culture, moving from the mere clear-cut knowledge, but into what the knowledge means to you and what it means to me. So what we want it to be taught in a way, in a very practical way, right? That is what we want, something that is very, very practical. So what we are doing at Hampton is that we are seeking to engage the students where situational analysis is concerned. Give them the information. Giving them information is one thing, but we prefer for the students to be placed in scenarios, and they are going to determine the right course of action, right? And that can engender some amount of discussion. And we are not only speaking about the mere knowledge. When we're in college, different domains, and then we still call it knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Is that what you still use?
Yes, Bloom's taxonomy.
Right. So especially when it comes on to civics, we want to ensure that we make that transition from the mere knowledge into the attitudinal or the affective domain, because we want to see that change. And this is coming out of the fact that we live in a society where corruption is high. The moral fabric of society is on the downturn. There's a decay. And that is why we find youngsters nowadays who will be engaged in lotto scamming, and they'll tend to tell you that there's nothing wrong with it. They'll tell you that they're just smart, right, in terms of trying to earn, quote unquote, earn a living. We have to transform our society from that moral degradation that is taking place, right? The values and the ethics, they need to be heightened. Civics will help to bring that up.
And another thing that I want to point out is the fact that as teachers of civics, it has to start with us. And the reality is, if we don't feel it, our students will not feel it, because it takes them seeing us, understanding and applying it to our lives for them to be able to apply it to their lives as well. So it is not something that we're going to go into the classroom and teach and it is left there. It is something that has to be enforced on a daily basis. And so sometimes you might see a child outside of the classroom, and the same knowledge that the child got in the classroom, you will now have to get the child to apply that knowledge to a particular situation. So Mr. Jones mentioned that one of the things that we try to do is to use scenarios where students can put themselves in the situation. But sometimes we find them in the actual situation, and we now have to get them to apply the knowledge that they would have gotten.
For example, there's one topic where it speaks about group cooperation, and they will highlight all the requirements for group cooperation. And students will go through that in class, and they'll say, yes, miss, we need this in the group, we need that. And then when they're given another activity that requires them to do group work, you find that not many of them remember that they got information about the requirements for a group. So you find that it links, the information links as they go along, so they too can learn and also put it in practice. No matter the subject area that they're doing, it is important in every aspect.
One of the things that we want to look at is what drives the civics curriculum.
Yes, just before we go to the civics curriculum, picking up on what Mrs. Daly Williams was saying earlier, there's one thing in teaching the students, for example, to properly dispose of garbage, right? We come and we teach that, but do they see us disposing of our garbage properly? And there's one thing to teach a beautiful lesson about how to dispose the garbage, and when we are on the road going home from school, in the taxi or driving our own vehicles, as teachers, as educators, we dispose of the garbage through the windows. What are we then teaching our students, right? So we ought to be putting ourselves in the position where we can be emulated, right? We don't want the students to get the mere information, and in terms of what teacher does, right, there is a detachment, right? We don't want the detachment to be there. So we have to be leading the charge. We ought to be leading the charge, not only for the students, but for the all the teachers across Jamaica as well.
So as social studies and civics teachers, it will be our responsibility to teach the other teachers as well. Because the reality is we are humans, and there are some teachers who, like the students, they are not aware because they would not have been taught civics in school, and so they are not aware, or even if they are aware, they don't apply it. So it will be up to you to ensure that you teach not just the students but the teachers as well about the importance of applying this to their everyday life. Alright, so what drives the civics curriculum? And one of the things that I like about the civics curriculum is the fact that it is taken from the ideas of Marcus Garvey. And we all know who Marcus Garvey is. But I'm sure that many of us do not understand the impact that Marcus Garvey would have had on not just our society, but other societies as well. And as Mr. Jones had said earlier, you find that you might go to other countries and you find persons in these countries who have a greater appreciation for him than us as Jamaicans. And so this is where the social study, the civics curriculum is now taken from, where we use Marcus Garvey, his teachings, his sayings to drive the civics curriculum. Because we will understand that outside of the other national heroes who were very important to the development of Jamaica as well, Marcus Garvey was really the one who was focused on the whole idea of nationalism, understanding and appreciating who we are regardless of the situation that we are in, regardless of the homes that we're coming from, regardless of who we are. This is what the civics curriculum is aimed at, getting us to appreciate who we are, and in appreciating who we are, we extend it now into becoming aware, becoming conscious, and becoming responsible persons within the society. So you find that the organization of the civics curriculum, it is centered around Marcus Garvey's teachings and his sayings. And so for each theme, you now have not just the sayings of Marcus Garvey, but you have a song that centers around each of the theme, and this is what drives the curriculum.
Yes, and still looking on Marcus Garvey, and the whole civics issue here in Jamaica. We don't have to believe that it is only when people go abroad that they feel this, when they go abroad, it's only that kind that they feel this inferiority complex due to racism and all of that. What we find here in Jamaica as well is that oftentimes our youngsters do not have the self-esteem, right? There's this loss of self-esteem because we tend to promote the quote-unquote Browning syndrome, and others are left behind, right? Not regarded. So what civics also tends to do is to give people this sense of identity, right? This sense of identity, and especially in the global world in which we live, what it does, it sets the foundation for people to function effectively without feeling inferior here in Jamaica and when they go abroad likewise. Because we know that Marcus promoted the whole idea of this black consciousness and pride, right? National pride, black consciousness and pride. So the civic curriculum also helps to individuals to do that.
And we find that if in order for us to have this sense of awareness, consciousness, and responsibility, we first have to have that pride. Because if we do not develop that pride in ourselves and in our country, then we are not going to be able to appreciate who we are and what it is that we are able to contribute to our Jamaican society and also to the wider society.
Okay, so as Mrs. Daly Williams said earlier, we are new to the new civics curriculum. Now, we were given the curriculum guide from grade 7 to grade 9. But at Hampton School, this year is our first year doing civics in a long time. So we as teachers, we are still trying to get accustomed to the curriculum. So far, we are at grade 7, so Mr. Jones and myself, we are both the civics teachers for grade 7. Hopefully next year we'll be able to move on to grade 8. And so far, as Mrs. Dale Williams also said, the curriculum is organized with themes and also quotes from Marcus Garvey. So the first term, they talk about identity and heritage. So this is where, as Mr. Jones said, you get to have an understanding that you belong here. You also get an understanding of where you're coming from. Who am I? Am I important to this world? And right there, going back to the attainment target, you have a sense of awareness to know that, yes, I belong here. I am important to this country, to this society on a whole. As we move on to term 2, where it talks about symbols, rituals, and celebrations, this is where we look on the various symbols, their importance, and how it relates to us, or how we can relate to it on an everyday basis. So we even go as far as looking on our school history. How important is our school history to us? Because many times you find that the students will go to the institution and their aim is just to get to 5th form or to 6th form and just to go through the gate. But how important is the school to me? Or how important am I to the school? And from there you also get a sense of how important you are to your culture and how important your culture is to you. And then over to term 3, where it talks about rights, responsibilities, and the environment. Here you look on the rights of the citizen, your rights, your responsibilities, your duties, and the whole work. And along with Marcus Garvey, we are seeing where they're taking information from other persons like Peter Touch and Bob Marley to assist with bringing across the lesson to the students. Now, one thing I can say to you teachers going out, that for the curriculum, it requires you to do your research. It's not a case where you're just given the curriculum and you're given a book to say, here you go out in the classroom and just give the information. You have to do your own research as to ensure that when you get in the classroom and the students start to ask you some questions, you are able to answer them. Mark you, not every question you'll be able to answer, but at least you will be prepared to know that when I go in and the students ask me a question, I'll be able to answer them, and they will have a lot of questions. Another thing we try to do is to allow them to share their personal experiences, because you find that students love when teachers listen to them, and through sharing their personal experiences, we are able to make necessary corrections to them and to have them being worthwhile citizens when they leave out of our care.
And it is important there, Ms. Chisholm, that we highlight the local cultural icons. Because globalization has brought the foreigners right in our living rooms, right? And as such, the students tend to be more knowledgeable of those from overseas. So promoting persons like Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and those others is important. It is important that we do that. And you would agree oftentimes that we lack local videos. Yes, we do lack that. We can find some of them if we do the research, but they are not as readily available as those from overseas. So we tend to want to use the easy route because we just want to get our lessons going, right? But if we do that, what we are going to be doing is denying the students a knowledge of our own culture, and our own culture will be lost or assimilated into that of the overseas culture, right? We have already been impacted by the attire, right? Our local industries are more or less null and void, non-existent. So we have to do whatever we can to salvage the little bit of what remains, right? That is what we ought to be doing.
And what we want to resonate with you is the fact that the civics curriculum, it is going to be your responsibility to go out there and to bring it to life. Because just looking at it, you might not see how you can bring it to life, but it is going to be your responsibility to do that. And you find that once you get into it, it becomes very exciting. And the students, because of how much they are able to relate to you, because of how much they are able to share, you find that they will enjoy as long as you make it engage them. So we want you to understand that you have a major role to play. If you are not willing to put all the work that it requires, then it means that you are going to fail your students. You're going to fail the society, because the whole idea of doing it is so that we can see if we can create a change within the society.
What we did the last year, Ms. Chisholm and I said we're preparing a lesson. I think we spoke to celebrating our school. And what we did, we sought to look for past students who have made significant contribution to national life as well as overseas, right? And what we sought to do is to have the students do their own research and they come and they do their own presentations, right? So you want to be, as Mrs. David, you want to engage them, right? And that also helps to develop in them this kind of a zeal to also achieve, because others have been able to achieve coming right through the same system, and they have been able to achieve despite the odds, in spite of the odds. So when you go out, see as much, you might not get into one of the traditional schools, but wherever you go, there must be some record. Your own research will indicate that there are persons who you can highlight, and that will better attach the students to this school and give them a better sense of pride and them wanting to achieve.
Alright, so we hope that the presentation was meaningful to you. We hope that you weren't just here chatting and you didn't get anything. Do you have any questions? Any comments? Any questions? The floor is open.
Oh, I got a question from around here. They are asking what are the challenges you're now facing with this, if there is any challenges.
One of the challenges that we face is getting information, because there is no text, because it's a new curriculum. You don't necessarily have a set text that will give you the information, readily give you the information you need. Sometimes it will seem as if you can hardly find the information, and you sometimes have to draw on not just your knowledge but the knowledge of others in order to be able to give students what it is that the curriculum is looking for.
The curriculum is from grade 7 to 9. Do you think that students will, like when they reach grade 10 to 11, students it like what was taught?
If it is taught in the right way, I don't think that they will. And the good thing is that the civics curriculum does not start at the grade 7 level. So we are familiar with the 7 to 9, but then it starts from grade 1, which means that this is something that the students would have been learning from 6 years old. So it is something now that they should be able to take with them through their lives and not.
And grades 7, 8, and 9 are not detached. They ought not to be taught independently, right? Because remember that you're teaching about values and attitudes, civic pride and all of that, right? So it's not, you don't come to the end of the road for grade 7 and you're totally cut off and there's no bridge between the 7 and the 8. What it requires is for us as teachers to have that thing being built and continually being reinforced, right? As we go from one grade level to the next. Because however we look at it, the values and the attitude, right? They are going to remain constant.
Including social studies.
Exactly.
And all the other subjects as well, because you find that what you learn through the civics curriculum is what you will have to apply to every other content area that you are doing. And so it is not detached.
And another thing, the social studies curriculum, along with the civics curriculum, it is very close. So you'll find that there are some topics that will be done in social studies and you'll see it coming about in civics.
So you can use the two content area as connection for this area.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
And it will also overlap with history.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some amount of
You said there's something about the younger generation bringing international artists into the culture. But I'm wondering, how can we use, for example, globalization in order to promote civics education to the younger generation in order to make them more patriotic?
All right. I think what we ought to be doing is, for example, to highlight that when other nationals from elsewhere go into the United States, for example, they tend to retain quite a bit of their own culture. But for many of us as Caribbean people, but as Jamaicans, oftentimes our own culture is just diffused into that of the American culture. So what we ought to be highlighting is that we have to retain our own identity. And while globalization is important, right, and operating in a globalized world is of great significance, if we lose our identity, then we just don't know who we are. So that is what we have to promote. And these are the same youngsters that when they go abroad, they have to ensure that they celebrate some of what is Jamaican, what is Caribbean when we go overseas. Right? In Canada and elsewhere they have, like in Britain they have Nottingham Hill, what do you call it again? There's some gathering of Caribbean nationals, right?
There's one in New York.
And there's one in New York as well. So I know that there's one in New York, one in Canada, one in the United States. Well, US, Canada, Britain. Those are the three areas. So we have to remember now, when we go abroad, we still want to have ourselves attached, and we are going to identify with the diaspora. Those are some of the things that we have to be doing. When we look at many like of the East Indians in US and Canada and those places, there are some things that just remain traditional and unchanged, because they are not going to be losing their identity. And I think why we tend to want to give up our identity so quickly is that the foundation was not set from an early stage when these young minds are impressionable. We have to ensure that we have this information embedded, not just the mere information, but also appreciating of the information. All this has to be embedded in the psyche, so it becomes a part of their life, a part of their culture, right? That is what we ought to be doing.
And the reality is that if we are successful with the civics curriculum, it means that a few years down the road we will not have to worry about this, because this is what it is.
So, William, we can say, if, as you say, if the civics curriculum is successful, we can say our culture won't be erased, but it will be more highlighted within Jamaica and the rest of the world.
I'm not asking a question, I just want to make a point. I think that the way the teachers teach to is going to impact on the achievements of the civics curriculum. Because I think that our history is already there. That is what happened to us. Our foreparents were slaves, we were taken from Africa. But I think that the way we teach these things, we teach it in such a way that we tend to sympathize with ourselves and not look at what it is that we have done and all of the milestones that we have gone through to accomplish where we are. So I think as teachers, we need to change this hopelessness in which we teach, and to say to our students, look, this is our reality, this is what we went through. But don't look at it that we had suffered and we were slaves and all the things that come with slavery. But look how we resist this to the point that we're almost equal or better off than some persons. I mean, when you look at a Marcus Garvey, that the whole world seems to be in awe with. No, some of the things that and the economies of the world trying to understand, he understood it and he spoke about it before. So I think we as teachers need to, I think this whole idea of liberating ourselves, and once we're held captive, we're not going to make a significant difference to these students, because they themselves have been sympathizing with themselves. And so if we help them not to see the civics and our history and our culture in a different way, then we're always going to be trapped in this helplessness and this feeling sorry for ourselves and, oh, look who we are, we're Jamaicans, we're 14, the British came and they took whatever from us, and this is what we're left with, what we're going to do with it.
So to further expound on that, that is why using the Marcus Garvey's teaching as a foundation is very important.
Yeah.
Right? Emancipate yourself from what these are things that we have to discuss.
Yes.
Because they know the lines of the song and they don't have a clue what it means. So the child will be singing about emancipating from mental slavery, yet the inferiority complex is so heightened and so dominant in the person's life, right? We have to ensure that they get this kind of an idea and lift themselves from the helplessness and hopelessness.
Yeah, and we teach it in such a way that, so even in our classes, the way we talk to our students, we should be empowering them.
Right.
Yes, you're coming from a background where you think that nobody loves you, but here you get into a social studies and a civics class. The teacher's responsibility is to change this. How will the teacher change this? The teacher will give you opportunities now, and as teachers, that is what you have to do. You have to give your students opportunities to see themselves differently. And once they start seeing themselves differently, you'd be surprised the work that they'll be able to do, because they would have freed themselves from all of these inferiorities. And most of us who are sitting in this room, and most of us who are teachers, it is because somebody, somewhere, believed in us. That is why we get to this point. But we go out now and we start teaching and we forget about that and we start treating them like, so that is why they tend not to love Jamaica, not to love our culture, because we ourselves, we have done a lot to help to get our students into this mold of not loving themselves.
So what we find again is that some of the difficulties you were speaking about, for me, I'm almost sure I can speak from Ms. Chisholm as well. The time is a factor, because I meet my class 1 hour per week, right? 1 hour per week. And especially for those of us who are teaching, like myself at the K level, if you are not conscious of how important civics is you want to forego teaching a proper civics class, right? Preferring to mark some IA and get that thing up anyway. But you have to treat it as important nonetheless, right? So the fact that it is 1 hour uncovers the fact that we need to plan carefully that we get the most from the 1 hour. I don't know how it will be for other schools. But if it is that short an impact on a weekly basis, we have to ensure that we get the most out of it. That requires careful planning, right? You'll find again that sometimes you may not be able to have a whole lot of content in terms of information that the students have now secured in their notebook. But if you would have helped to bring about a change in behavior in terms of how students perceive things, then you would have still achieved a whole lot. When we look on the whole issue of the scamming, for example, if you can get a student to play great significance, show great significance to honesty and personal integrity, if you gave just one line, but you would have helped to change the behavior and the mindset of a student, you still would have achieved, right? So I say to you, when you're teaching, do not try just to get the content. Too many of us as teachers over time, we are just stuck in the knowledge domain. And there are many persons who in our society now who are awash where knowledge is concerned. But we, as it relates to personal integrity, that is more or less non-existent. That's why we have the bright persons, university education, but they still want to engage in the corrupt lifestyle. That is what we have to be changing, and civics is what is going to help us to do that. Right? Once civic is deeply embedded in their hearts, we can look for a reduction in the crime rate. And if we have a reduction in the crime rate, then our tourism product will be better appreciated. And I don't want to be sounding as if I'm drifting now. But when we look at what is happening and the potential for Cuba as it relates to tourism, if we don't get certain things right, then the kind of pristine beauty that Cuba has, we're going to find many persons just shifting route and going elsewhere. So we have to get certain things right so that our tourism product can attract persons here. Simple as it is, that 1 hour of interaction, it is going to help to make that difference once we build upon it over time and we model the correct behavior as teachers.
Like for social study, mister. Yes, man, to the group, man. Like for social studies, we are being taught that we must learn how to do problem solving, and that's what is going on here. Like for instance, with the content and the absence of content, and you have to go and discover. One of the recommendations I could put forward is the teachers, social study teachers who are now teaching civics, could now actually compile books and actually start writing books and putting books together for those who are coming into the system and students at large, so that they can benefit from it. Also put in areas where questioning in terms of the different domes or different taxonomy to be placed inside there so you can benefit.
And that's a very good suggestion, Joshua. But what you find is that because it's a new curriculum, you're going to find that over time there are going to be changes to the curriculum.
True.
And so even though you might start putting these things in place, people might not necessarily want to, because for one, they will have to do extensive research in order to do that, and two, because of the fact that you might see changes coming over time. But it's a very good suggestion.
True. Oh. Sherry.
Mrs. Williams, Ms. Chisholm, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and share in your presentation on civics education. We have learned a lot, and based on what we have learned, when we go out into the high schools, we'll be able to better educate our youth so that they can become empowered Jamaican citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing with you. I know that it was
of it as well to be able to teach them effectively. So the Jamaican show appreciation for it, because if you go there and teach it, but then you have no appreciation of it, as they said, they're not going to really understand it or go out in society.
Now, Professor Sherry, while I was searching on the internet, I saw something very important where a teacher at a school said, as part of the delivery of the program, the school plans to take the students on visit to Jamaica House, Parliament, and
What is so friends and family, every school learn the national flag and the national anthem. As a means of hope, like get a person to be more appreciated.
But as what Mrs. Williams was saying, she was saying that it doesn't need not to be taught in isolation. It can be applied in other subject areas as well. So integrated.
and the way how we bring it across. For example, take them to King's Road, Parliament, and then make a whole thing and make them across and
Special papers inside as well.
Alright, that's how Shania says we integrate it with other, for example, with social studies, we teach our national symbols, our heritage, and it's the same thing coming out in the civics. So when you're teaching civics and the students go to a social studies class, you could just bind them together and say, remember in civics class so and so and so. Instead of re-teach them over again about the national symbols, the national heroes. You could make them make connection from the
And use
civics
real
class.
life examples.
that's why we say bring them
Because
King's Road, Parliament, and
we have the text that we bring it
But
also.
even if
Like
you're
a real life situation.
even if we have text, how many of them would be able to relate to it? So they have to, it has to be something that they have experienced or they're exposed to. Me reading a book don't mean that we know about it and we can relate to it.
Because you have some schools that can't hold on field trip.
So you have to bring the field trip to them.
Or you can do it virtually or something like that.
Okay, one of the things that civics education is nation building. And students not necessarily have to go to field trips and all of those things. Nation building, how can you be a nation builder? You can even help an old lady cross the street.
And also
They share those kind of experiences with the students in class. How are some of the things, good things they have done this week? So you can even create a chart, like a pricing or a chart. Start chart. How many persons are there this week? Motivation. Are you keeping the classroom clean? Those are things, civic pride, nation building.
And then we use that as well to link it with the national heroes as well to table.
Not even the national heroes only, you know. Like in the civics curriculum, we have Bob Marley, Peter, nation building, and speak to them as nation builders.
Back to what Porter was always talking about the pledge and the anthem. How is it that students as early as basic school they know how to model themselves when these things are being done, like the anthem, and if you don't pay that attention and to do, if it's a case that they have to follow such orders. They're educated from that age. Who am I?
Use Usain Bolt as an example. Usain Bolt have a certain civic pride in him. Alright. You remember the interview with him at a reporter where the interview was starting here, and then the US anthem comes on, and he said, hold on a minute, national anthem here. And he stopped attention until the national anthem.
But he was the same person who was fidgeting in our anthem.
Yes,
Yes,
he was.
He did that. You know, I'm very extra himself.
But
Play.
and rare. They were
And for them,
thinking-
because when they really, I think they cannot
The same thing as what is being said.
So if he hadn't had a background of civic education, he would have gone to the
No, Sharon, I think he knows or he has been educated about it, but him just fucking lose overexcited. Because he know, because going through the school system, see, he must have known how to regard. He understand the kick of excitement.
Such a standard as it relates to the national anthem, because you have teachers there at school, the national anthem is being played yes, they themselves are walking around and taking up stuff or walking on to staff room meanwhile it is
I remember when primary school, when they do singing the anthem, they say if it's not fly on your nose or not to touch it, to move. So now that they see the same persons who are telling them not to move, they're the same persons who are fidgeting. As Cherise mentioned, if you're not truly in it, then you cannot be able to impart such knowledge.
You remember Marina when
yes.
And he passed.
But he was wrong because he should not have been speaking. So you have to wait until you finish your talk first and you can't talk to the person. I go to primary schools and I see that students are not doing it properly and the principal, you can't stop the national anthem.